You're listening to Talking Law, the podcast where business owners just like you discover how to avoid legal landmines and build value using smart legal tips.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here and welcome back to Talking Law, a podcast proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Welcome to part 2 of our special 2-part series with Michael Hutchens of Modano. Back in part 1, we looked at the differentiation opportunity for business owners and advisors to businesses in using financial analysis to drive growth and strategy for a business. In today's episode, we talk a bit more with Michael about his software at Modano, which enables businesses to build and maintain scalable investment banking quality financial models. And we also go through a few examples of businesses who have used financial modeling to power their growth. All of this and more. So keep listening and we'll get you started. Let's talk a little bit about your software. So maybe if you can run us through what your software actually does and what the opportunities are for businesses out there within your software.
Well, all the software is, I say all it is because people get scared of it, but all it is a system that enables you to more efficiently use Microsoft Excel to build financial models. So we looked at WordPress as an example 10 years ago. And we looked at how websites, we were building our own website using WordPress without actually hiring an engineer. And we looked at modeling and thought, why aren't financial models able to be built like WordPress? And we looked at WordPress, and the reality is WordPress is successful because the vast majority of people using it don't actually build the content that makes the website work. So on WordPress, if you want to plug in a shopping cart, you can plug in a module that does that. Over the years, a whole community of people has built that code that does that. And that's why you can build a WordPress website and start charging somebody from widgets you're selling from your home without really understanding how to write code. So it's funny, like in our system, we're sort of walking that fine line between giving people, our system enables you, for example, to insert a discounted cash flow into a model. So open a model, change the number of time series periods, insert a discounted cash flow, add and remove pieces. So for example, add some SAS pieces to your model, but then it's still Excel so you can go and actually then play with it. Right. So we walk that fine line between giving people a whole lot of information that they can then use to do their modeling more efficiently and effectively, but also automating it. And therefore, one of the discussions we always have with people is you still need to know what you're doing using our system, which is where all the training comes in. But to give you a really simple example, in the old days, to build a financial model, you'd start with a static template that you got off a mate or your accountant, and you'd type numbers in and hack around and sort of try and work out what was going on. With our system, we've built 10,000 pieces of financial models.
Wow.
And an example of a piece is as I said, like a SaaS revenue projection is one piece we've built. Another example might be a depreciation calculation for your fixed assets.
Yeah.
And what our system allows you to do is just cherry pick like Lego the pieces you want, slot them in, but then even after that, you still need to then know how to customize the model for your business. So what we sort of pride ourselves on is getting people as far down the line as we can in terms of a model that looks just like their business, and then we work with them to get that final bit across the line. So it's very similar to web development, where traditionally when the web first came out, you'd have to pay an engineer tens of thousands of dollars to build your website from scratch, and only big companies had websites. And now that's the opposite is the case. You can go to India and get a website for $300 without knowing anything at all about anything. Now with financial modeling, you do need to know something about what you're doing because it's risky stuff if you don't know what you're doing. And that's why we do so much training. We have such a big support system that we help our users with. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you need to spend $50,000, $100,000 to get a model up. And that's the traditional problem. So a lot of the larger accounting firms that have built modeling groups up over the last 10 years, they almost have an unspoken rule. If you speak to them, they'll tell you over a beer, listen, it's not viable for us to build models for less than $40,000 or $50,000. So most of the market hasn't had access to that type of IP.
Yeah.
So it's funny because we still work at the big end of town. A lot of our work is from big companies, but we're also moving into this smaller space where smaller businesses that want to get this skill can get it. So the software for us is really just a medium. And people talk to us and they go, "Oh, you guys love Excel." I'm like, that's like going to a lawyer and saying you must love Word. The reality is it's kind of offensive. Like I'm not an Excel nerd. I like analysis.
Word is very handy for lawyers, though. To be fair, but
it is. Like if you had to do everything manually, it'd be a real problem, right? We just happen to be using Excel because it's still by far the best solution for the vast majority of things that we do in financial modeling. And our system is just a tool that expedites the process. But ultimately, the endpoint is still a financial model that is effectively a numerical representation of your business.
Yeah.
And a really good one, it literally lives and breathes the way your business does and gives you comfort that you can, for example, you can run a scenario and say, well, what if we're selling 40% of our products overseas in the next 12 months and the exchange rate drops 3 or 4 cents? What's our exposure there? And then you could turn around and say, geez, our exposure might be 300,000 or 400,000. Maybe we should enter some foreign exchange swaps, for example, to expose that risk. So basically we just don't have that risk, and therefore you could do some numbers and work out whether it was worth paying for that type of insurance on the exchange rate risk.
Yeah,
and that's it does. So, I mean, our software really is just a part of enabling people to get to the same point they get to, if they were paying 50 to 100 grand for a financial model, but doing it cheaper and doing more of it themselves.
I love it. And so, can you think of any examples? It doesn't matter if you can't. You can say no to this question, but can you think of any examples of sort of maybe a mid-sized business or maybe even a smaller SME that's using your software at the moment, that's sort of gone from this process of not knowing a lot to now knowing a bit to effective implementation of financial modelling?
Well, a good example that I like because I love their food is Fonda Mexican. So Fonda's this cool. I think they've just opened one in Bondi,
right?
Which I tried to get into when I was living there, and it was too busy. But these guys started Fonda Mexican. It's like grill. I think they're probably up around 10 or more stores now. But those guys effectively have opened a quick service, really high quality Mexican food restaurant, which also has like a cocktail bar, and all the beautiful people go there. It's really doing well. And those guys really from really early on, they hired an actual financial accountant that wanted a good financial model, and we helped them build effectively. We've helped them build some modules that they use. They use a module to analyze each store, and then to add a new store, they can reuse the same module, and they effectively are able to do peer analysis between the different stores using this analysis. So they can preemptively put a module in. So what would it look like if we opened another store in, say, Darling Point, or we open one in the CBD of Sydney?
Yeah.
So they've done that and it's funny because they're sort of following in the grill, the JB Hi-Fi model. We've done a lot of these, worked with a lot of businesses doing this, and the franchise space is really ripe for this because it's scalable, and doing it manually is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of repetition, which means you can create a piece of analysis, and our software enables you to reuse it.
So any business that is looking to grow, right? This sounds like it's imperative.
A good example there as well is companies come to us that are growing and that they do a capital raising, and someone will turn around and say, can you give us a valuation? And traditionally you'd spend a day or two hammering that in, manually in Excel, whereas we'll just plug a valuation module in, or maybe a comps module, and put in some data about some competing companies. It actually is harder to agree on the assumptions if you're building models efficiently than it is to build the model itself. But I mean, the stories like Fonda Mexican they're fantastic. I mean, because you see these guys that have started businesses in their late 20s, early 30s. That are turning over like tens of millions of dollars within 5 years, and they're just fighting to get their head around the growth.
Yeah.
And a big part of being able to chat with investors or potential investors or banks, or even looking at IPOs, is actually knowing your numbers. And there's such a big difference between somebody who can walk into a room and say, this is where we're making money, this is why, this is when, and this is how. And people that come in and say, yeah, we're doing pretty well, the average store does this, and we open a new one next month that we're expecting to go pretty well. It's sort of like, what does that even mean? So it's funny. It's a lot like me with that VC over in London when he started firing all these questions at me on the phone.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your average churn? What's your average tenure? And I'm like, don't know. And he turned around and said, listen, sounds like you're doing really well, but sounds like this is all in your head still. He goes, at what point are you going to formalize your analysis of the business? And I was like, yeah, it's funny because it is really starting to grow now. And it's funny, in many ways, I'm sort of hypocritical because as the main shareholder of my business, I know what the numbers are. Yeah. But as we get bigger, you've got to start communicating that. And it's funny that there is a fear inside of a lot of small business owners that if they look at their company hard enough, they might not like what they see. And I know I had that feeling when I started looking at my proper subscriber numbers late last year. I got a little bit scared because I realized there were 5 or 10% of our subscribers, with 3-6 months overdue on invoice-based subscriptions that we hadn't been following up. And I'd wake up in a cold sweat thinking, what if like 10-20% of these just don't pay their invoices? Do I go on this huge rampage of cancelling them? And in the end, a lot of them end up paying, and I wrote a few off, and now I've got this clean bed of subscribers, and I know the number is within 1 or 2% of what I'll actually get the next 12 months. So it's one of those things where actually understanding how your business works. If you're really risk averse, it can be really scary because you do your analysis and think, wow, this business is actually quite risky. Especially in a services business where you sit there and go, oh, geez, a lot of the services businesses we look allocate that aren't large, if they lost 2 or 3 of their main clients, they'd have to get rid of half their staff.
Yeah.
So, and that clarity can be scary for some companies where the people would rather just assume everything's fine and just not think about it.
Yeah. The head in the sand technique sometimes is used in business. I've seen it used many times.
I try to restrict it to when I'm on holiday, but the rest of the time, I try to actually know what's going on.
Let's talk now about the opportunity for accountants. Now, we've talked about this bit in the podcast that we recorded previously in the deal room, but I just, before we started recording, we were talking about this concept of annuity-based revenue streams for accountants, the opportunity that it can provide. I guess it's not just accountants, there might be other pools of advisors as well, but generally accountants. And when you say annuity-based revenue streams, in my words, that's the recurring income stream. It's that ongoing revenue stream, and of course there's compliance there. But why is this an opportunity? And where do you think in our discussions you've explained that you think many accounting firms, are sort of missing seeing this opportunity? So maybe we can step it out a little bit more today.
Well, yeah, and as I said to you before we started this, we were having a chat. I mean, I spent a lot of the last 2 years speaking to accounting firms. I think I'd probably be one of the world's preeminent experts on accounting firm mentality and philosophy now. And it was tough. It was tough for me because I came out of uni into investment banking, where within weeks of being in banking, you're pitching and you're selling, and you're also looking at opportunities. So your whole thought process is, where is the opportunity? Where can I do something special? I think with accounting firms, the first thing you sort of get taught is that you need to not mess things up, because you're effectively a pillar of strength for companies. You provide them with assurance. Accounting is effectively insurance in essence for a lot of businesses. So above and beyond that, it's like, if you think about it, the person you go to for the best, most stable advice probably isn't the person you go to when you want to go and have a big night out and say, where do I go and get really drunk? So it's kind of weird. So I think a lot of accounting firms sort of feel like their role isn't to go into companies and talk to them about, let's grow fast, let's do crazy stuff. So, a lot of people I spoke with immediately started saying conflicts of interest. And I'm like, they're like, oh, we do their assurance, we can't help them with that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, there's a huge difference between aligning yourself with a company so strategically that effectively its success depends on your advice, and if it fails, you sort of let them down while you're doing assurance, and just providing them with a better understanding of their own business.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a short break. When we get back, Michael talks about the problem with plug-and-play solutions. He also drills into the risks of clients outgrowing their accountants if the accountants fail to upskill and service their customers' need for good financial analysis. We delve into that and a whole lot more. And that's next. I'm Joanne Oakey, and you are listening to Talking Law, a podcast brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Are you looking for a top quality legal team to assist you in your organisation? Aspect Legal is an innovative commercial legal practice that specialises in providing fast and professional services for their clients. Our commercial legal services cover a wide spectrum of disciplines: contract law, dispute resolution, business sales and acquisitions, brand protection and IP. We work with clients both large and small, and we're all about helping you grow while protecting you from the unexpected storms of business. If you'd like to chat about how we might be able to assist you, simply head over to our website at www.aspectlegal.com.au to book in time for a free discussion with one of our legal eagles. So get in touch today. Welcome back. Earlier, Michael introduced us to a cheaper and effective way of building financial models, a new software that Modano has developed to help small business gain access to good financial models without the heavy price tag. We also identified some SMEs who have used financial modelling to power growth. And just before the break, we drew it into the opportunity for annuity-based revenue streams for accountants who might want to add value to their clients by offering these much-needed services. Now, let's jump back to our conversation with Michael and talk about the problems with plug-and-play solutions.
I think the other thing is that accounting firms are all focused on, when they talk about annuity revenue streams, all of them are focused on subscription type software. I mean, I've got no problem with Xero and QuickBooks. I mean, they've made things a bit easier than Moab used to be. If you're a good accountant, I think Moab was a bit easier in many regards and faster, the desktop version. So, but Xero is a great, sexy program, and so is QuickBooks and a lot of the add-ons. The big issue with a lot of these programs is that a lot of people are using them and just typing numbers in and not really understanding how their businesses work.
Yeah.
And what a lot of the accounting firms are trying to do is take those programs and convert that into a sort of $50, $100 a month revenue stream for them, where they don't have a human element involved. And a really good example of this is one of the Big Four, where one of the Big Four looked at everything, including our system, and decided the best thing to do was buy an off-the-shelf Xero add-on, rebrand it, and then try and sell it as a $2,000 a month strategic analysis package.
Wow.
But they've sold quite a lot of it. But the reality is it's not particularly good because it's a plug and play solution. Yeah. And that solution, it's all cloud based, which everyone gets excited about. But that means, for me, as far as I'm concerned, it's slow compared to desktop Excel.
Yeah.
But what it does do is provides people with some great looking dashboards and some cutting and slicing of their data, but it doesn't give them a good strategic projection tool. And that's so. But the real driver behind that for that accounting firm was that they wanted the $2,000 a month. They're sitting there going, this is great. We're going to get $25,000 a year. 25, maybe more if they customize. So, and to customize that platform, we have clients coming to us that's saying, we're using this platform. It's $2,000 a month. Every time we ask for a customization, it's outrageously expensive. So what they end up doing is building a model, an Excel model that runs alongside of it, where they can just hack it whenever they like, and add dashboards and charts and all sorts of stuff, and they can do it really quickly and easily without having to actually rely on that third party. So the subscription model for the accounting firms I see that we've proven exists in our business over the last 15 years is the model where you go in and you help a client get a budgeting, planning, and strategic forecasting system together, so a whole infrastructure. So you help them link their accounting package data to their projections. You help them build a financial model which is strategic, so they can run scenarios and they can use it for refinancings, capital raisings, what if analysis. And then once they've got that, the annuity comes from that client then being in such a close relationship with you that they call you all the time to help them with their decision making. Yeah. So for example, in 1 year, most of our clients, we've hardly done any marketing for the last 6 or 7 years, and our revenues have continued to increase. And that's because, clients come to us once or twice a month saying, we want to tack on a new business unit. We'd like to add some new scenario analysis. We're doing a capital raising. We're doing a refinancing of debt. We'd like some new dashboards, etc. And it's an ongoing thing. So it's almost like we maintain their website and they put the images in it. They write the text in it, just like with WordPress. Yeah. But if they want changes made to the way in which the website works, then we actually go and go into the back end and change the wiring around.
And, surely this is an opportunity as well for accounting practices to target that sweet spot of client, which is the client that's growing and that needs the ongoing advice, because these are the sorts of businesses that need the dashboards most, need the financial information most, need the modelling most, right?
Oh, it's not even just an opportunity. It's a risk not doing it, because I mean we went and pitched our software to a very small firm about 3 years ago, and they were actually working with a really fast growing company, and we pitched them. They said, oh yeah, we're doing really well. Our biggest client is this client, and we said to them, oh, are you guys doing financial modelling? So these guys sniffed around, didn't really dedicate any resources to financial modelling, and then the client came back to them about 6 months later and said, listen, we need a financial model. We're doing a capital raising. And they turned around and said, oh, we spoke to this Modano company. So they gave us a call. So we ended up stepping up and helping them. And then what ended up happening was that we ended up working directly with the client. And then the client actually then turned around and said, listen, guys, to be honest, you guys aren't really strategic enough for us. And they moved to another accounting firm that was using our system. And so these guys came to us and said, listen, you burnt us. And we said, no, we didn't. You guys couldn't service them. Yeah. And we didn't want to service them, but they needed a model badly. Yeah. So, and the funniest thing is the other firm they went to were probably less impressive in terms of the staff they had, but they'd actually invested some time in learning how to build financial models.
Wow.
So ironically, this small accounting firm lost its biggest client because they outgrew them and they weren't providing those skills.
Wow.
And it's funny because at this point in time, you don't need to be a particularly good financial modeler to impress an SME. That's the beautiful thing. It's these halcyon days in this area where you can, it reminds me back in the 60s and 70s where it was a lot easier to be cool back then. Now it's very complicated. You've got to actually try and master social media, do all sorts of crazy tech stuff. Whereas, back then you just sort of dress a certain way and walk a certain way, and it was a lot easier to be cool. And I think with financial modeling right now, if you can understand integrated 3D modeling and build a model that the client can use to run scenarios and get what they want done, whether it's a capital raising or a capital raising fundraising or at IPO or even just something as simple as a rolling budgeting model, which they haven't been able to do automatically, you become a rock star to them. And then you've got time where you evolve. So the annuity stream here isn't just, it's the annuity stream that comes from providing a service that companies need real time, but it's also an annuity stream which comes with the fact that you become the preferred supplier of the services that are based on the model. So we often work with companies. We'll work with companies where we'll build them a model, then they'll get UBS to come in and help them with something, and UBS will come in and the client will say, listen, we want Modano to keep running the model. So there's these weird scenarios. I mentioned this in our last call. There's weird scenarios where we're running deals alongside investment banks where the modelling isn't being done by the investment bank. And the investment banks don't overly care about it. They're a bit apprehensive about it, but they're like, you know what? If it's a good model, it's a win for everybody because we can focus on more strategic things and using the model. So, it's funny. If accounting firms really want to move forward and be savvy, they need to focus, I think, less on plug and play tech, which gives them some little annuity stream without them having to do much other than sell it, and focus more on empowering their staff, getting greater skills that empowers their clients, that then forms a relationship almost of analytical dependence. And I say that in a positive way. They become dependent on you to understand their business better because they know that you are an empowering body. Yeah. And that's where the accounting firms don't seem to realize they have that capability. They've got the relationship already. It's just an extension of it. Yeah. And they're not building on it. I mean, it's insane how little money the big firms are making out of financial modeling, and most of it's still from audit. And it's because they're just not respected as financial modelers, a lot of them yet. But they could really easily, right?
I think, I speak to a lot of accountants that, have been in practice for many, many years. And I feel that the accounting environment that they've created with their clients, who are approaching retirement is very different to how I see, the new business, the new growth business in terms of their relationship with their accountants. And, let's project forward the next 5 or 10 years with the advent of all of this technology. In the past, accountants did used to sit as that, that absolute trusted advisor, and businesses wouldn't make a decision without calling their accountant. Now, I know very few high growth businesses that have that sort of relationship with their accountants nowadays. So, this is a way of building it in, right?
No, it's funny. I mean, what we're also seeing is, and I won't name names here because there's so many of them doing really well. I don't want to sort of shout any one particular one out, but what we're seeing a lot of now is accounting firms that some of them are buying up a whole lot of bookkeepers just to get their client lists. Some of them are just naturally growing really fast. But the ones that we've got this new world order, which is accounting firms that are coming in and saying, we'll do your tax, we'll do your accounting, we'll do your legals, we'll do your social media, and we'll do your budget planning and strategic stuff. And they're the ones that are really interesting because to me, I think about the fact that I came out of a commerce law degree and didn't even know how to register a company. It's insane that we don't get educated on how to actually do things practically. We learn all this theoretical awesome stuff like weighted average cost of capital and DCF, and we don't actually know how to register a company when we go to start one, let alone when do you pay payroll? When do you pay payroll tax? So what I see with a lot of parties that are doing really well now is they're coming to businesses really early on and saying, we'll get your bookkeeping right, we'll link that into a financial model that works really well, we'll do your legal and structuring, we'll set up your entities properly, and we'll actually provide you with advice in relation to a partnership agreement with your legals. And they get it all going so that really early on, you've got a company that's set up to grow. Whereas traditionally, the whole approach has been, all you need to worry about for the first couple of years is getting your tax right. We'll put you on a payments plan to save you having to pay tax for the first couple of years while you build the company up. And then after that, suddenly you sort of do stuff as you feel you have to. Yeah. Whereas I think where the world's heading with a combination of tech, knowledge, and empowerment is the ability to plug and play a new company, and within the first 3 to 6 months, you've got the system in place that will last you up until you're turning over 50 million.
That's beautiful.
Wow. And then doing that without spending a fortune, because traditionally that's cost a fortune. You've just sort of had to keep paying more and more consultants to do that. Whereas I think what's happening now is technology is meaning at every stage of the way you can put in place a solution which will last quite a long time. Yeah. And that's where I look at the big accounting firms. I'm like, you guys should be going out to your clients and saying, okay, we've done your assurance for years. We've never really spoken to you about strategic planning. Let's start with that. And then maybe we can provide you with some advice about potential acquisition opportunities. Yeah. Because we understand your business, because we've been talking to you about your business in detail now for 3 months while we've been modeling it. We've got another client over here that's quite similar. Do you guys want to have a chat? So, I mean, there's a lot that accounting firms can do to become much more like investment banks without a conflict of interest. And in the process, derive a lot more revenues doing stuff that's a lot more exciting for their staff. I mean, we met with Moore Stevens a couple of weeks ago, and the CEO was in the meeting, and he actually said, our junior guys, we showed him the modeling. He stayed for the whole thing, which is awesome, because a lot of the more senior guys get bit bored or blown away, one of the two. But he stated at the end, he said, listen, my junior guys are constantly telling me they want to be more strategically empowered, and they want to be able to provide more than just assurance to our clients. He said, our junior guys, we should make this a KPI that within their first couple of years here, they all know how to build an integrated three-way model, and they can pump one out for a client, so that when the client starts chatting about it over a coffee, they can say, oh, listen, let me just throw one together for you.
Wow.
So we built a model out of zero for a hypothetical company in their boardroom with the CEO there in 8 minutes.
Wow.
And it instantly had a whole lot of graphs and charts and brought in all the zero data. And then instantly we threw in a DCF and did evaluation.
Wow.
And we put some forecasts in, and we showed how you'd roll the model forward. And the first thing he said was, this is just something we should be offering as a no-brainer to clients, as almost a conversation starter. And we're like, yeah, but this stuff hasn't been possible. I mean, financial models, it's taken us 10 years to get our software working, and it's because it's just really hard because every business is different. And if you speak to entrenched financial modeling organizations, they'll love to tell you how you can't use software financial modeling because every business is different. But the reality is every website's different, and WordPress and content management systems are now used for 88% of websites. And that's because they're different, but most of the pieces are the same.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting stuff. I mean, I could obviously talk about this for hours, but the opportunities, I mean, we've done numbers, and we think that the market in Australia in terms of available fees is over $1 billion for the SME space alone.
Wow.
And it's because there's just so many of them. There's literally a couple of 100,000 SMEs that turn over multi-million-dollar turnover that would spend $5,000 or $10,000 a year on financial modeling if it helped their business grow. It's just a no-brainer. But, it's a generational change thing that comes with both technology, awareness, and education.
Yes. Well, look, and as you've mentioned earlier, there's easy ways that accounting firms or even businesses themselves can get started. You said that you've got a whole range of resources that are available for people to go in and start working through for free.
The absolute easiest way for them to start, and it took me a long time to get to this point because I thought everyone would just want to jump in and do hours of learning, which most people don't, and a lot of firms don't want to invest a lot of money in something until they know it's going to get an ROI. So the absolute best way for firms to start is sit down with a few of their clients that they think would most benefit from a financial model, which are obviously either the ones normally that are either in trouble financially or the ones that are growing really well. And sit down with them, have a coffee and say, listen, we're thinking about offering some strategic financial advisory services where you guys would have a better understanding of your business. You'd have a real-time financial model that would link to your historical data, and you'd be able to understand your business drivers a bit better. Is this something that would interest you? And if so, is $10,000 or $12,000 reasonable? Because most SMEs you can make money building models for between 10 and 20,000, and if a company turning over 5 or 10 million, that's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
So especially if it saves them making a bad decision or it helps them make a good one. So we found with the mid tiers we spoke with, their clients absolutely didn't even blink when they said 10 to 20,000. So then it comes back to, okay, how can we service this client and still make a margin on that 10 or 20? And with the first couple, we've been doing a lot of projects with mid-sized firms where we build the model and they watch alongside the first one or two, and we do a fee split. And then going forward, they step back and they start doing it all themselves. So what that does, it creates a dynamic where they can see a cash flow positive deal go through their business and a client come back and high five them without having to actually dedicate a lot of training and resources to learning how this all works.
Yeah, it's a really good suggestion. Surely it's an easy way for an accounting practice to start, dip their toe in.
Well, some of the smaller firms don't even actually, they come to us and they say, listen, this is great. We're just going to partner with you guys. And we're like, that's fine. I mean, it means your margin's going to be lower. I mean, and obviously as a SaaS business, our growth depends on being able to grow, which means we don't want to be doing everyone's models.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at this point in time, we'll do whatever works for the different parties involved. So we've got a lot of smaller firms that are like, we can't really afford to have a full-time guy modeling, and our guys aren't really sophisticated enough, but we've got 2 or 3 clients that are happy to spend 10 or 20 grand a model, and it works for everybody. And they still, and in the process they learn. And so some of them over the last 3 or 4 years have evolved from doing that with us to turning over $250,000, $500,000 and realizing, listen, there's money here.
Wow.
We don't really want to give Modano 100 or 200 grand of our $500,000 of new revenues. So that they'll hire a staff member and we'll effectively make ourselves redundant. But at that point in time, often they have 5 or 10 staff and their clients using our software. So we shift to being a software provider.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird dynamic where we can viably do pretty much any scenario clients want. It's often the hardest thing is what's the most appealing starting point. And that's why I suggested the most appealing one we've found so far is just see if your clients are interested and how much they're willing to spend. And if they are, give us a call and we'll cut a deal.
Michael, As always, it has been absolutely fabulous. This has been great. I think we've covered some really good information for businesses and once again, some really great information for accounting practices. And I just love your approach in terms of making it so easy for people to get started, whether you're a business or whether you're in accounting practice. And in our show notes, we'll definitely be linking through to Modano so that you can go in there, have a look at the resources that they have on offer and get learning. Or if you're an accounting practice, we'll also set out in our show notes, in the transcript, exactly the way Michael has suggested that you can get started and the conversations that you should be having with your clients that are growing or potentially hitting a cash flow crunch. He's got a transcript there for you. He's got a script there for you in relation to exactly what you can say to them. So we couldn't be making it any more easier than this, right?
No, thanks, Joanna. No, I obviously love this stuff. I could talk about it all day. I've spent the last 2 years talking with people about it. I mean, the reality is we've got a lot of people now that are doing really well out of this. So, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I'm more than happy to put sort of, my money where my mouth is with this stuff. And I think it's just a huge thing because the beautiful thing is if this works, advisors grow their businesses, corporates become more successful, and Modano gets to keep building software, which is what we love doing. So it's the funniest thing is about all this is it only works if everyone wins. Yeah, it's awesome. I love chatting with you, and thanks for having me on again.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, as with last time, it's an absolute pleasure. And look, I really enjoy talking numbers because I think that there is so much opportunity. And as we're talking, I've actually taken a whole heap of notes for a number of things that I think we need to be doing within our business as a whole. So that just shows.
Yeah, every barbecue and family event I go to, someone goes away saying they need a financial model. So I mean, it's funny. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't even know they have this issue right now. So no, absolutely, I love it.
Thank you so much, Michael. We'll have a link through to you, but thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks, Joanna. Pleasure.
And so ends our special series on using numbers to drive growth and strategy with Michael Hutchens of Modano. As a quick recap, in this episode, we learned a bit more about Modano's new software. We identified some examples of SMEs who have actually used financial modelling to power growth. We then drilled into the opportunity for annuity-based revenue streams for accountants who boldly take on the challenge to service the need for good financial analysis of their clients. Now, after the break, we digged deeper into the problem with plug-and-play solution and the risk of clients outgrowing their accountants if they fail to step up and upskill themselves in this area. I hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please subscribe to Talking Law on your favourite podcast player to get notifications straight to your mobile when we release a new episode. And of course, check out the show notes if you'd like to contact Michael or Modano directly. Well, thanks for listening in. This has been Joanna Oakey and Talking Law, a podcast brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to Talking Law. Tune in next time for more smart legal tips and tricks to keep you clear of those legal landmines. If you want to get a download of today's show notes, head over to talkinglaw.com.au.
Are you looking for a top quality legal team to assist you in your organisation? Aspect Legal is an innovative commercial legal practice that specialises in providing fast and professional services for their clients. If you'd like to chat about how we might be able to assist you, simply head over to our website at aspectlegal.com.au to book in a time for a free discussion with one of our lawyers.